You're listening to Create Wealth Through Franchising, and I'm your host, Kim Daly. In my 20 years as a franchise consultant, I've helped hundreds of people achieve their dreams of building and scaling franchise businesses to create wealth. The interview you're about to hear can also be found on my YouTube channel, where I post new franchising content multiple times per week. Please take a moment to subscribe to the podcast and to my YouTube channel at kimdaly.tv. Now, enjoy the show. Welcome back to Kim Daly TV. My special guest for you today is probably one of, no offense to all of the candidates I've worked with in 20 years, but this guy is, my heart has gone out to him from the very first day that I met him. I don't know. I just had a sweet spot from the very first call. And I feel like he and I have gone on to become very good friends. Our conversations are more mutual, like investor to investor often. He's an incredibly smart investor. He's a wealth of knowledge. He's now a franchisee with Club Pilates. And I am so excited to introduce my followers to my GOAT. His name is Ryan Stieg from Billings, Montana. Ryan, welcome to Kim Daly TV.
Wow, thanks, Kim. I feel like we should end right there. That was quite the introduction. I appreciate that. Thank you. Yes, we hit it off right away, and I think that you certainly are in very large part why I'm here today, why I'm with Club Pilates, and did an amazing job of guiding me through the process. So, where do you want to start today?
So you were this very experienced passive investor when I met you. And you had a significant net worth, but you were looking for something. So what led you to the idea of a franchise? How did you actually find me? I don't think I remember that.
Well, probably much like anybody who's listening now is listening. I caught you on a podcast. I can't remember if it was Chris Miles or Buck Joffrey, but I caught you on a podcast at an interesting time in my life. So I came from a family owned. I was a minority owner in a family owned business. And that had been kind of where I was up until 2017 when we sold. We sold our insurance agency, and I became part of a smaller owner in another insurance agency. And it was at that time where I was just trying to think about the future. I had been a real estate investor since 2016, some single family residences and some real estate turnkey syndications. And I knew eventually that I wanted to transition into business ownership. Entrepreneurship was something that I always wanted to get involved in, stay involved in, and also build a bridge of income that would eventually help surpass my W-2 and become something that my family and I could rely on, as well as our real estate investments too. So along come 2020 and everything that happened in 2020, as we all are very familiar with. And I was listening to a podcast one summer day, and Kim Daly was on there. And so franchising had always been kind of in the back of my mind. And I thought, you know what, probably safer than a Google search. Let's talk to Kim and see what Kim has. And
wait a second, was it safer than a Google search? Other than your wife, did I take the most amount of money out of your nest egg?
we won't ask her for comment. We'll keep it safe there. So while you and I were having conversations, one of the driving forces was, yes, real estate did provide income, passive income, and that's something that I know and I'm comfortable with. But on the entrepreneurial side, what I wanted to do is accelerate that. And I know that business ownership has higher risk, but it also has the potential for higher reward too. And so I wanted to scratch that entrepreneurial bug. And through my conversations with you, I found that this was a path that could help provide an exit from a W-2, as well as some income and a business opportunity that I could get behind and really hone my skills on.
And so from insurance to Pilates is such an obvious leap. I mean, we don't actually have to stop and talk about why Club Pilates was your dream franchise, but just to humor the audience, let's just talk a little bit about the characteristics of Club Pilates? Like what made you say, "Oh yeah, my future is in
That
Pilates"?
oddly enough, that's not the first time I've been asked how that bridge actually happened. So yes, so Pilates, I had never done Pilates. I'd heard the name, heard the word, but I'd done fitness. And so part of your investigation is, what's in your background? What are your interests? What drives you? What motivates you? And so of all the opportunities that we looked at, I knew that fitness was something that was important to my family and had helped change me personally and physically, as well as matching up with a business opportunity with a franchisor who could provide support, who had a successful model, and who I saw a demographic need in our community. So, no, it wasn't the day one. Hey, that's exactly what I was looking for, as some might understand, as some might ask, but it was where I landed, and so I have uh, I am now a Club Pilates franchise owner, and I am involved as a member. And Tim, you and I haven't even talked about that. I've actually become a certified instructor as well. So
Wow.
now I am way outside of my comfort zone in helping out the studio any way possible. Like one thing I found out early is that was the one thing that I could not help out in all my jobs in the past. I could help out whenever, wherever. I might not be great at it, but I could help out. But becoming certified was something that was a barrier for me to be able to help out our studio as needed. So
That's like a 500-hour course or something, isn't it,
it's
Ryan? That's a pretty lengthy
there are a lot of hours
course.
involved. That is absolutely correct. That is absolutely correct. In fact, I taught 2 classes this morning too. So I am widening my skill set as we speak. So
Hey, Daily Coach fans, if this franchise sounds like a fit for you, I would love to be your daily coach. Email me right now for a totally free consultation at inquire@kimdaly.tv. So you opened your Club Pilates last about a
yeah,
year ago. You're coming up on your 1 year anniversary, which is why I wanted to have you back in the studio or have you in the studio to share your journey. So, it's we're in 2022 at the time of this recording, and the world. He's in Montana. Maybe it's not a California in terms of how it responded to the pandemic, but there's still that worry. I'm sure when you were opening, like, oh my God, are people going to come? And so, what has your experience been like in this first year of business ownership?
uh, learning,
Well,
learning myself as a business owner. I had been in business ownership, been in management, but as I came into the family agency, I came into an established business, and I was able to fit my skill set in to where it was needed. But now this is, and I'm sure that term has been out there 1,000 times, but a franchise is like an MBA or a business in box. And so I love business, and that's what got me into this in the first place. But I've learned where my skill set is, where my strengths are, where my weaknesses are, and so that has been a learning curve. Is just really trying to build a team around me that helps to lessen my weakness and emphasize my strengths, and to build skill sets that are complementary to mine. So I've learned a lot about myself, and I've also learned that while business is business, there are so many different aspects of a totally different industry that I had no idea about. The cyclical aspect of fitness versus insurance, and how to build a team and how to build a community, and some of those things that we're learning along the way. But it's been an enjoyable ride. It's been I won't tell you it's not without stress, but it has been an enjoyable ride and a learning curve that has really helped me grow, and also been a fun experience along the way.
it's a great and valuable point. When you invest in a business, even a business that is really intended to be semi-absent, as Club Pilates is, there's this huge learning curve. You said it all. You're learning a new business, right? And you're learning how to become a business owner with a startup business. So when we talk about, like, if I interview people that say, oh, I bought this semi-absentee business, but it's not really semi-absent. It's not that the business can't be manager run. I think it's just that the learning curve is so big that it takes up a lot of time in the beginning to sort of get up and feel competent that you can keep all the balls in the air
Yeah.
effectively and be
Yeah.
successful. And that's
Yeah.
basically what you're saying,
Absolutely.
right, Ryan?
Absolutely. Yep. You know it.
Yeah. So, okay. So, the Club Pilates, for those people out there listening, Club Pilates is one modality under one of the largest fitness franchisors in the world called Exponential Fitness. And so, a big blessing to this brand is, I mean, you can get up to speed with one brand like Pilates and open a couple of locations and then come back and buy the boxing brand or buy a yoga brand or buy different modalities and kind of like share your membership across. And I know when we were working together, Ryan, because you live in a smaller market, it really wasn't possible to do multiple units, I think, of Pilates in your area,
Right.
correct? It was sort of like it was going to be a single
Yeah.
modality. So now that you've got a year under your belt, and not that like that makes everything great. It's the first foundational year. But do you still talk or think about, well, maybe one day I'm going to add on another fitness modality? Or do you think one location of fitness is enough for you?
If we were maybe a couple months down the road, and through our first year, I might be able to answer that question with a little more clarity. But I think right now my focus is to maximize the efficiency in this studio. We want to have it down to a well-oiled machine where we know every tweak that needs to happen to make the business work to max capacity and maximum efficiency before we would add add a second. I've talked to
Yeah.
other Club Pilates franchisees, and they make the analogy of kind of like having a second child. Like, one is work, two is a whole lot more work than just one, and three, it gets a little easier. So I need to get to the comfort level of being able to add a second and knowing how much work that would be, to expand. But the goal right now is really just to make sure that we are doing the best job that we can with a single studio, and then kind of take a look at what the opportunities are from there.
How has this real experience compared to your like imagined experience when we were exploring and you were thinking about being a franchisee?
That is a really good question, and I think that uh, you and I talked about it from the very beginning, that the operator, yes, there are market dynamics, there are economic factors, there are market factors that are far outside of our control. But like I said, I am learning what my strengths and weaknesses are, and so learning where those are and how to build complementary skill sets. It certainly has taken a lot of time. I probably underestimated the time that it would take, and that might be something that's on me, wanting to make sure that we're giving it the best shot that we can. But I think I underestimated the time a little bit and the learning curve. One thing that Exponential does really well is there is an abundance of information to help you learn it all. But and I almost
Mhm.
feel like even still a year in, there are days that still feel like we're drinking from a fire hose. It certainly felt like that day one, and for a long, long time. But I really enjoyed the process, even up till now. We talk about an MBA in a box. I'm learning marketing, sales, HR, all the stuff that I had somewhat of a background in, but I've really enjoyed learning all those aspects, from site development and real estate to construction and build out and building a team and hiring and finding sales associates, then selling, working with members. So it's been a fascinating experience, for me, and so I've enjoyed the process so far.
And do you feel like the franchisor has met your needs? Have they even exceeded your expectation in terms of that level of support?
Yeah, in fact, we still have, and once you pass your grand opening, so that's a major mile marker, is a soft opening, or excuse me, your pre-sale and then a grand opening. They're very, very involved during pre-sale, and then you start to taper off, and it becomes kind of as needed. And so right now we're on biweekly calls with our regional manager, who oversees the aspects of management at Club Pilates and regionally. And so, whether we need it once a week, every day, you're able to really tailor those needs to what you need as a franchisor. or as a franchisee, and so they do really have a good job, or really do a good job of training and support to really customize it. Once you get to the point where they can hand it off to you solely, they do a really good job of customizing the needs as we do.
For those who aren't familiar with Exponential Fitness, as I mentioned, they're I think the largest boutique fitness franchisor in the world with 12 different modalities at this point. But during the pandemic, going into March of 2022, they had about 2,000 club doors open among their many brands. And in one day, it took 6 or 7 years to get those doors open, and one day to close all of them. During the 2020 year, they had no, as a result of 2020, I should say, they have no permanent closures and they have no failures ever in the history of their brand with over 2,500 stores open today. So they are an incredibly strong leader. In fact, if you've been here on Kim Daly, you've seen the president of Exponential, Lance Freeman. He's been on here a couple of times in his daily double here in the studio. I love to brag that I'm the number one consultant in the world placing people into Expo brands. I love Expo because I love leadership. And to me, they are the best leaders in all of franchising. And that's a very big statement. I know a lot of franchisors. I just feel like they do everything right on behalf of their franchisees. They are a publicly traded company now, so they have lots of money, and it takes money to build brands and lift brands, and create customers and that loyalty. They just do everything right, and it was further demonstrated during 2020 and into 2021 in how they handled the pandemic with their franchisees and then how they came out of it even in states like California. So it's just an amazing group of people, and if you are thinking about owning a franchise, it behooves you, if this is your first time on Kim Daly TV, maybe to check out some of my other videos where I talk about when you invest in a franchise, you're not buying a widget, we're not buying Pilates, right? We're buying leadership. It's the leadership that kept the doors open. It's the leadership that adapts and develops the marketing that keeps the customer interested in coming back, right? It's the leadership that's maintaining the brand and growing the brand so that it's relevant to the competition and to the trends even in fitness, right? It's the leadership. It's always about the leadership. So I love hearing that, you feel well supported, Ryan. So let's talk about being an investor in real estate and you have a lot of interest in passive investments versus the franchise investment. um, are there any like what have you learned, or what's like the biggest lesson you've learned in being a franchisee in a startup, starting your own franchise business from scratch versus being an investor in like syndication or investing in another multifamily home? Like what's one big differentiator and lesson that you've learned?
That's a really good question, and I'll take a little bit of a parallel, and we can come back to it. But uh, I didn't even really communicate very well with you when you and I were just ending our relationship or when you and I were done working
Wait a
together.
minute.
We had talked about left field investors, and I was like, hey, this is something that is going on that we're starting. So within 2 weeks of me signing my franchise agreement and Left Field Investors becoming an official company, those were within 2 weeks of each other at the end of 2020. And so
Nothing like doing it all at one
if,
time, sir.
if you ask my wife, she says I bit off more than I can chew, taking both of these on at the same time. So I've had an interesting parallel in seeing the franchise grow as well as our business Left Field Investors grow along with it in parallel. And so what I've found is with real estate syndications, there are significantly more. There's a due diligence process and an underwriting process that you go through as an investor to really find and hone your skills on what am I looking for? Because I have shiny object syndrome, and so I look at everything that's shiny on anywhere that comes up. So really honing your skills and being able to prioritize and identify. So as a passive investor, you're looking at opportunities and making sure that you're staying true to yourself as to what you're looking for, what the opportunity presents, and then you're doing your own level of due diligence to make sure that that deal and that market and that sponsor are what you can put your faith in or your investment with a franchise opportunity, you're also placing an investment, or you're placing an investment of time, money, and energy in a different way than you would in a real estate investment. It is, after you hand off your investment, a much more hands-off process. But the level of control and the level of your own personality, your own skill set, and your own flair that you can add to the franchise with support. And that's one thing I've got a lot of questions about is why not start from scratch? Why not do this? So the level of control with your time, money, and energy that you have at the franchise with support is significantly different. And that's one thing that I've had an interesting parallel to see both of those things happen at the same time and watching those develop and seeing how we build and how our team has built Club Pilates to what it is today and what it means to our community. It's local to me. It's about 7 minutes from my house. And so to see the impact that it's had on our community in a positive way and to build that community of people who now have the Pilates text crew or the Pilates morning coffee crew, it's really interesting to see that happen live with the business that started between you and I and conversations that started about 2 years ago today. So uh, they're two different types of investment that act similarly in what you're looking to achieve with them, but your level of involvement of time, money, and energy and impact is what's different.
Hey, Daily Coach fans, if you're inspired by this conversation, I invite you to email me right now to explore this franchise opportunity. My email is inquire@kimdaly.tv. Can you imagine starting a business from scratch? Knowing like all the ready made tools that you had from Exponential to launch this brand, and think about like you wouldn't even have all of that. So the learning curve, like magnified or, like times 100.
Yes. And another parallel. So Left Field Investors was started from scratch. Just five guys with an idea that also started at the same time I started Club Pilates. And as both businesses grew, the ability for me to say, okay, I don't know, real estate development. I understand real estate, but from a ground up development and how to build a studio that's custom fit, I would not have known, and I'd have made so many more mistakes. Where I can go to the construction and development team at Club Pilates, and we can go, okay, this space fits or it doesn't fit. Here's a test fit.
Who, by the way, they've done this like 900
Yes,
times.
and you don't second.
It's your first time, it's their like
Yes,
900th
and
time.
you don't second guess them because they know the recipe. You're not trying to add different spices and different ingredients. They know the recipe, they know what works. And so you have that process, whereas we built Left Field Investors from the ground up, and we kind of use the catchphrase, we're five guys just trying to figure stuff out. And so as we get to different levels of software needs, we have to figure that out. As we get to different levels of do we need to hire, do we not need to hire, do we need to outsource, we need to figure that stuff out. Whereas in a franchise opportunity, you have answers. You can develop your own flair for it, but you have answers. They've been down this road a million times, and you have answers for those things. As a startup, you're figuring all of it out on your own, right there, live and in person, in front of your members or clients, whatever you have. You're figuring it out on the fly. Where with a franchise opportunity, you have so much more support and someone who's been down that road who can help you out.
Ryan, you're just a wealth of information. I'm going to leave you with this. So, about a week ago, I interviewed a Stretch Lab franchisee. That's another brand under the Exponential brand. This will just hopefully be that daily dose of inspiration for you. So that interview will be live here on Kim Daly TV very quickly. But that franchisee was franchisee numero uno for the pioneering brand at the time, Stretch Lab, 4 years ago. Yes, and he sent me an email, Ryan, and he said, if you had asked me 2 years ago if I had made the right decision, I would have said absolutely not. But at the 4 year mark, I'm 100% sure I made the right decision. And I said, "Oh, Dave, don't say anything further. Let's turn the camera on and record this conversation because this is going to be a doozy." And it is. It's a very, very good video. But to leave you with that sort of daily dose of inspiration, what the point he was making was The first one took a long time, and he was pioneering a new thing, not just a new brand, but a new thing, because it was like stretching is as a membership. Like, what the heck even is that, right? So there was a time in the market to like launch that brand and teach people and educate people. And then the pandemic happened in the middle of that, poor guy. So then he opened his second studio before the first studio was even cash flowing positively, which everybody said he was crazy. But he was like, yeah, but how can I know if this is like good or bad unless I can judge it against something else? Like, is it my market? Is it the location? Is it right? Until I have two that I can kind of like compare and contrast. And so at 2 years, he had two studios open. And after the end of the video, he said to me off camera, he said, I went into this hoping that the business would cover 60% of my living costs for the foreseeable future. And that way, 40% could come from other investments or my savings. And at the 2 year mark, I was 100% funding both locations and my life. So, okay. But there was a pandemic in the middle of that. Okay, guys. So no panic. 4 years later, all three locations are now up and running, and it is 100% supporting his life and then some. And most importantly, he's now living the life as a semi absentee owner. Like 3 days after his third studio opened, he took off for 12 days and was on vacation because he's got people and he's got systems and they know what to do. I asked him a question and he said, I'm not sure I can answer that. I might have to get my manager because and I said, how much time do you spend in the studio today? He said, including the time I go in to get stretched. I said, no. He said, an hour and a half a week, probably. And I said, per studio? He said, no, for all three. So it was such a great conversation to capture on video. And, it's the benefit of time, right? So if I had interviewed him at 2 years, it might have been a very different video than interviewing him at 4 years. And it's not to say it takes 4 years. So don't, if you're listening to this, go, oh my God, I don't have 4 years. There were extenuating circumstances in there, a pioneering brand, a pioneering thing, and a pandemic. Right? So there's that. But it's stepping back and being able to say, this is why I did it. I'm here now. I'm achieving that. I'm living the dream. I have the freedom, flexibility, control, 100%, and then some of the income I was hoping for. And I hope that if we capture a second recording with you, if you become a daily double for me, Ryan
Yes.
Stieg, in a couple of years, that you're standing in that exact position and you're ready to say, oh, I not only am thinking about owning a second one, I already am.
Yes, and I can see that. I can see that, and that's absolutely true. One of the things that's funny is we're now seeing too. Summer is so cyclical. Everybody's outside, so we saw that summer cycle, and that was one of the learning curves we had is learning that cycle. And now, almost as soon as school started, our membership count is coming back up. Our classes are full and oversubscribed, and so we're seeing that this is our first transition through that cycle. So, like you said, understanding where you are in that business cycle and understanding what the long term projection is, it's absolutely true. Right.
It takes time. It's not a eat today, a kill today, eat
Yeah.
today mentality when you're a business owner. And the first year, it's sort of like being a new parent, right? You got to go through the year of firsts, right, before you fully relax. And but when you have the year of first with your second baby, it's a lot different. You're not running to the doctor every time the kid has a stuffy nose, right? And as you get to 3 and 4, right, like you're not even running to the doctor. You're like, he'll be fine. Meanwhile, he's got 103 temperature. Right? So, I mean, it's just the time and experience or the main ingredients to success in anything, and it's absolutely going to be true. And I am 1,000% sure, Ryan, that you are going to have an amazing run with Club Pilates and maybe other exponential brands or even other franchises if you come back to me, if I'm blessed to be your
I
consultant
wouldn't go
again.
anywhere else.
I just really I love you, and I am so grateful for my business for the opportunity to meet amazing humans like you and to develop this friendship, about franchising, about investing, just person to person. I just think you're an amazing person, and I feel blessed that you came on to share your story. And I hope the people who are watching this video also have enjoyed it a lot, because you are a wealth of
And I
information.
appreciate that, Kim. I really do. And like I've said before, and why we had you on the podcast with Left Field Investors, and I know you had a second opportunity with Buck. I vouch for you every day of the week. So if anybody needs to reach out to ask what it's like to work with Kim, feel free.
For anyone who this conversation has inspired to learn more about Club Pilates or any franchise, if you're just ready to begin your journey to consider the opportunity to become a franchise owner, you know that I want to be your daily coach. Please follow the email on the screen or email me directly at inquire@kimdaly.tv. That's inquire@kimdaly.tv. And until next time, my name is Kim Daly, and I want to be your daily coach. If you found this inspiring, please contact me at inquire@kimdaly.tv. My consulting services are totally free to you. Again, that email is inquire@kimdaly.tv. I can't wait to hear from you.